number 3. The time is now. It's the 4th of November. I'd like to welcome back all our regular viewers and hopefully welcome new viewers, new subscribers to PEEP. PEEP magazine is your #1 combat magazine online. You can subscribe to us obviously through YouTube. If you're watching us now, you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook for your up-to-date combat news as it happens. We cover boxing, mixed martial arts, kickboxing, a variety of different subjects as well on our newly named PEEP XS, formerly known as PEEP Mix. We'll be talking a little bit on films tonight. As I said, my name's James Watling as part of Team Alpha, a training, what should we say, mythos and system involving martial arts, strength and conditioning, nutrition, attribute and emotional development work. You can follow me on Instagram on Team Alpha 1424 if you'd like to take part in any of the classes that I run, some of the private coaching, the one-to-one coaching that I do, some, as I say, nutrition information, supplement science. You can follow me on Facebook, or rather you can subscribe to me on Facebook on Team Alpha page. Also on Twitter, you can follow me on @WatlingHot, and soon to be released our new Team Alpha website, which I'm very excited about. I've been working on that today with my good friend Jeff Brown. So without further ado, let's get on to the main part of the show. So the show order tonight, we're going to have combat news first of all. Now, the last few weeks we've been discussing mainly boxing, professional boxing we've been focusing on. Particularly last week we talked a lot on that subject, and one of the book reviews was actually Dark Trade, which is obviously boxing oriented. Tonight we're going to focus on mixed martial arts, specifically UFC 217. We've got some exciting fights happening there. We're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming BAMMA show and also Made for the Cage, which PEEP will be covering. Possibly the UFC 217, but definitely BAMMA and Made for the Cage. We have a special guest in our rather expansive, warm studio tonight. He's just kicking back with the ladies at the back of the studio there, being just fed grapes and drinking hot chocolate. So that's good. We've got a great special guest for you tonight. Last week we had David Wield on. So tonight we're going to stay on that kind of theme, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. So we've got our special guest coming up. Competition, we have a winner actually of our ongoing competition from the first episode, those who remember the first episode. We have a winner of that, so I'll be re-announcing that competition, obviously announcing the competition winner, who'll be winning themselves one of our PEEP magazine special edition t-shirts. Why it's a special edition, I'm not too sure, but it is. We also have the currently running competition, which is the limited edition, limited edition, and you may even get the rather fetching dressing gown as well. We're not too sure about that. The current competition, I'll be re-announcing that and the prizes for that, and then, as I say, we'll be moving on to PEEP XS, talking about films tonight. So that'll be interesting. So let's get on to the main brunt of it. So we're going to talk mixed martial arts. I'm just going to refer to my notes here. So some of the 100%. Some of the upcoming mixed martial arts shows in the, let's say, the bigger divisions or the bigger promotions, I should say, the larger promotions. First of all, we have BAMMA, which is arguably one of the UK's premier mixed martial arts promotions. That's going to be at the Metro Radio Arena on the 15th of December. Which, as I've just said, is one of the UK's biggest mixed martial arts events. Fighting on that show, top of the bill, we have Colin the Freak Show Fletcher, who's a very well-known mixed martial artist hailing from the UK, and Tony Mustard. And as I say, PEEP will be covering that event cage size. So BAMMA's well known for having top-rated fighters throughout Europe and throughout the UK fighting on their shows. Fighters from around the world. So you can expect a high-quality event. Tickets, I imagine, will be you'll be able to buy directly through the Metro Centre Radio Arena. I don't have the prices in front of me, but we'll have more information for that later in the show. That'll be interesting. So people will be there. So if you are subscribing already to PEEP magazine, you'll be getting the up-to-date information on that event rather as it happens. So if you stay with us for that should be interesting. Moving on next to Made for the Cage, which again is another large promotion. That's going to be on Saturday. That's actually before. Is it the week before? Let's have a look. It's a couple of weeks beforehand. It's Saturday, November the 25th at the Rayton Meadows Arena, which is a very popular fight venue. PEEP, again, will be covering that show with photography and interviews with Barry Braley, who is another freelance PEEP journalist. Now, I don't have the running order of the Made for Cage show, or in fact any of the athletes that are competing on that. However, again, we'll have more information for you on that show. But the dates to remember are Saturday, November the 25th for Made for the Cage, and December the 15th, which is the BAMMA event, which is the Metro Radio Arena. So if you're into your mixed martial arts, if you watch the UFC, even if you just got a passing interest, it might be worth checking that out. Go online now. Go onto the respective websites of those two promotions. Have a look at some of the fighters that are taking, some of the fighters that are competing, some of the shows, the fights rather are taking place. Have a look, see what you think, and perhaps go to a show live rather than just staying back and watching it on subscription television. So the UFC, I want to talk a little bit about that because I've done a bit more research on this upcoming UFC, number 217. I wonder, can I ask the guys at the back there, I wonder why they changed, well, I know why they changed it, but wouldn't it be interesting, instead of just calling it UFC 217, they went back to having the old Roman numerals, so it'd be like 20 X's and a 1. Trying to fit that on the fight poster. I think we're gonna start a hashtag, bring back the Roman numerals for that, so that would be interesting. As I was saying, so I've done a bit of research. The embedded shows, I don't know if anybody's watching the embedded shows on YouTube. Fantastic, really, really interesting behind the scenes footage there. Very professionally produced, really interesting. I'm sure we're all on those. If you aren't, I recommend that you do check them out. So on the UFC 217, we have some great fights. I mean, the main ones which are being covered, which I'll talk a little about. I'm just going to read them off this card, so to speak, and then we'll get a bit more into the nuts and bolts of it. So we have the bogey woman, the champion, Joanna Jedrzejczyk. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Probably not. I do apologize, Joanna. Jacek. There you go. You see, I just like to expand my language there and wasn't very good. Okay, so we've got Joanna J, we'll call it. A great fighter. Watching some of the stuff on Embedded, I've got a lot of positive feeling for her, so to speak. I mean, she conducts herself so well on camera. She's obviously a fantastic fighter, a fantastic athlete. I was watching some of the training that she was doing, and she's just tremendous. Seemingly in all areas, her striking particularly just seems absolutely on point. And she certainly dedicates herself to her craft. And as I say, I mean, she seems to carry the air of a champion very well, in the interviews and in the press conferences. She seems to have that really in hand. So her opponent is going to be Rose, let me butcher this name, Rose Namajunas.
Rose.
We got it?
Close, you're close.
We're close on that one. Rose, again, I apologize to you for butchering your name. Interesting one with Rose. I mean, again, I've not seen any of her fights. I've just watched some of the training footage. She's very quiet, and I think that's maybe just part of her nature. She does seem very quiet and just kind of a little bit reserved, and that's perhaps just the way she is. You could misinterpret that, perhaps rightly or wrongly, as nerves and just a little bit of uncertainty, and that could perhaps work against her. Joanna J just seemed super confident, and she even, as I had a bit of a face-off, she'd said to Rose, look, you haven't got the confidence to be the champion, I'm the champion, or words to that effect. So that could play over into the fight, because very clearly, when you're coming into a show as big as a UFC and you're fighting the champ, you've got to have your mental game as strong, if not stronger, than your physical game. So that could work against her. So that's one of the fights, which is going to be interesting. The next two, it's a bantamweight title fight. Both ex-teammates from Team Alpha, not my Team Alpha. That's interesting. Uriah Faber. I spoke a little bit about Cliff before on Uriah Faber. He, if you remember, he fought against, and he had his legs nearly kicked off. One of, what was he called? Aldo. Was it Aldo? Josie Aldo, I think. And Josie Aldo was just taking away Uriah Faber's legs, and he almost looking as if to apologize and say, "Look, I've got to do this," And afterwards, I remember watching footage of Uriah Faber on crutches, and his leg was like, it was horrible. It was a horrible kind of injury to have, but one of those ones that you just kind of got to ride out. So we've got Cody Garbrandt, which I probably pronounced wrong, versus TJ Dillashaw. I remember them having a bit of beef, TJ Dillashaw and Cody. I do remember seeing a past episode. I think I just ran it on YouTube of what was it? Was it guys help me out? I'm sure I just wanted behind the scenes, the UFC behind the scenes when they're in the house together, and I'm sure I'd seen them on that. And there seemed to be a bit of beef between these two guys in the past. Both. It could, it was a Contender. That's I'm sure they're on Contender and had some beef on there.
There's some beef with TJ kind of left the group.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Kind of a turncoat maybe.
That's right. That's the way they were looking at it. They were kind of perceiving it as he was a bit like turncoat or, two-faced or no loyalty. It was an interest. I mean, they both seem to be very strong bantamweights. Again, watching training footage from them both. It's interesting. I mean, they both seem very confident, in the press conferences and the face-to-face. I think Cody seems to be, a little bit more kind of, I would say, the aggressive one. He seems to be one that's kind of coming forward and kind of putting himself out there to TJ, whereas TJ is just kind of like riding it out a little bit. I think Cody seems to have, I think he seems to be the one that has a grudge to bear. He seems to have a grudge against TJ Dillashaw for his perceived lack of loyalty. And whether or not that's going to work in his favor during the fight, we'll have to wait and see. If he's going in with a mindset of, of anger and hate towards TJ Dillashaw, and he doesn't keep his head about you, that could give TJ the advantage. But I think TJ has lost a few times by KO, so that was brought up certainly in the press conference. Cody questioned his chin. So that'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Top of the bill, though, and something I want to talk a little bit more on, and certainly when we get our special guest on, is the legendary Georges St. Pierre's come back. He's returned back into the cage, into the octagon against Michael Bisping, who's the current middleweight champion, and that's got there's a lot of possibility in that fight. Personally speaking, I've not really been involved much in the UFC scene over the last few years. I was a big fan of UFC when it was Vita Belfort, Frank Mir, those types of days, going all the way back to the very first ones when you go and get it on videotape. UFC 1, it was style against style, and then obviously it progressed, right through there. Remember the days of Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman, those guys, they went away to fight on the the Japanese promotions, and then obviously it's progressed right through. But Georges St. Pierre is somebody that, I know and love, and I've watched a lot. Obviously, his wrestling is one of his big strengths. He was a very strong welterweight, I believe. He's come up from welterweight, a very strong wrestler, a good striker. He trains with Freddie Roach a lot on his striking ability as well, but certainly known for his wrestling. Rush is his nickname. He would shoot in, take you down, position you, kind of wear you out. So he's got a tremendous career. He retired, I believe, for 4 years. He walked away after 4 years. He won his last fight, but he came away very literally scathed. He's marked up and just seemed exhausted after the fight. I think he had a lot of personal issues going on as well.
Was that the fight against Hendricks?
It was against Hendricks, yeah. It was a very brutal fight, and I think some people were saying, could Hendricks have won that fight? But from my memory of it, I think when a guy comes out of the fight marked up, even if he has scored the most points, he's landed the most blows and etc., and maybe succeeded with the most takedown defense, you could watch it afterwards, look at his face and think, well, he's marked up more, perhaps the other guy won. But from what I remember, I remember having St. Pierre as certainly winning that fight, perhaps a close one. But after that, it just seemed to get to him. I think he was having issues in his personal life. He just seemed to need that break. So these 4 years, you could argue it from both ways. Are the 4 years going to have re-energized him away, or the 4 years going to tell on him? Because obviously Bisping's continued to remain active during that. Now Bisping's, he's beaten some tremendous champions, some legendary champions. I remember when he beat, it was actually. Who was it? Sorry, it was Anderson Silva. Thank you. Anderson Silva. When he fought Anderson Silva, from what I remember, I think it was a flying knee that Anderson Silva had landed, and he dropped Bisping down and he started to run around and celebrate. I think he did his little flip that he does, and rightly so. The referee said, well, no, I'm the one that stops the fights. The referee kept the fight going. They went to the corners, and that may have, I think, more psychologically for Anderson Silva, just thought, well, hang on, I thought I'd won and I've got to go back in again. And obviously Bisping, managed to overcome Silva and become victorious. So very tough guy, Michael Bisping. I think he started initially in kickboxing, from what I remember. He's got a good base, and he's a tough guy. You can never discount Michael Bisping. I think you've got to nail the guy to the ground to stop him. So it's going to be interesting. You're a tough man, a tough guy. And it was interesting when he was talking to St. Pierre, and he said that, have as much tuna as you want, have all your protein drinks. That's why I've never tested positive, because he just has that mindset where he just goes in and grinds and trains, and he's a real kind of like spitting sawdust fighter, And I like Michael Bisping. I'm not a personal fan of the language and the swearing, the aggression, but that's who he is, and he doesn't hide himself. He doesn't pretend. He's got a beautiful family. He takes care of his family, and he's a successful guy. He keeps coming back. But what's interesting to me, and I want to talk a little bit more with our special guest we're going to bring on the next couple of minutes. St. Pierre, just the physicality of Georges St. Pierre, he just seems very kind of, seems very lightly boned and not, I don't want to say fragile because he's a strong guy, but I'm just wondering how his body frame's going to cope coming up to the 185, which when they step in, obviously they're going to be heavier than that. And even on the embedded, he talked about half jokingly drinking water to look heavier for when Bisping sees his weight. So, the thing is, the weight itself maybe isn't an issue. It's more of a frame issue that Michael Bisping's just a naturally stronger guy, and that's going to tell. And if St. Pierre's coming into a wrestler guy who's, perhaps physically stronger and bigger, that's maybe going to take away one of his best weapons, So that's interesting. So we've kind of touched base on that. And obviously, the other thing I would like to say as well, if you would like to, join us in this live show, you're very welcome to. Perhaps not physically, but you can certainly comment, write some comments down. You can contact us via Twitter if you want to ask any questions, make any comments. We'll read them out live on air. We're very happy to do that, and it's meant to be a two-way show. So we want you guys to the guys out there, the viewers, you guys to message in and call in eventually and take part with us here live in the studio. Yes.
Just posted that on Facebook now, so if you wanna.
Fantastic. So we've just posted that on Facebook. What, the interactivity on Facebook? The link. Okay, so the link's on Facebook. If you want to follow the link, you can join us because this is the best part of the show that you've all been waiting for. We have our special guest. Before I bring him on, I'm just going to read a short bio. So our next guest, is a professional athlete and K1 kickboxer, professional fighter and coach. He began his martial arts training at age 6 in the traditional martial arts and Chinese kickboxing under the tutelage of Master Steve Jessup. He's dedicated himself to his craft for the last 25 years and has managed to achieve in that time professional WK British, IKF British, IKF European, and he is a former ISKA world title contender, predominantly competing as a heavyweight. He's achieved a record of 28 professional wins with 5 losses, with I believe 20 KOs. If that's incorrect, he will, I'm sure, let us know. And he also holds the dual light heavyweight super fight challenge belt, which is interestingly ties up with our guest of last week, Mr. David Wheel. So without any further ado, could I bring in our special guest, Mr. STEVE Hellraiser?
Hey.
How you doing, brother? Good. You okay? Good to see you. Thank you. I'll just let you get comfortable. Thank you for joining. Each week we set up one chair with an explosive device, so I'm hoping you haven't chosen that chair, so you should be all right. So we've known each other for a long time. We've trained together. We fought together. I was in the year above you at high school. How you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good.
Good, man. Good. We're just thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on. It's great to see you. So how have you been doing? How's things been going? How's the training been going?
I've had a little bit of time out from competing. I said I'm going to take the rest of the year off. I've just been lifting lots of weights.
Right.
Lots of weights and playing about with new things.
Right.
New tricky little techniques that I plan on using next year.
Well, we're watching. I've been watching some of your footage on Instagram. Can we give you Instagram? What is your Instagram? Is it at Stevie?
Steve Ibbotson Kickboxing.
Steve Ibbotson Kickboxing. If anybody, any of the viewers want to follow Stevie, if you go onto Instagram and just follow him on Stevie Ibbotson Kickboxing, and you too can see some of the footage that I've been watching. So interesting stuff going on there. So, what is it you're trying to? Are you just come up with new things that you haven't done before, or just kind of?
I've been doing it now for like 25, 26 years. You just need to keep everything fresh. You never know when something's going to work. Yeah. One of these crazy kicks or crazy techniques might actually work.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I remember I think 2 or 3 fights ago when I was in the corner with you and you fought this humongous super heavyweight. I'm just gonna move the microphone very, very slightly closer to that. A humongous super heavyweight, and he wasn't a super heavyweight because he was carrying. He was like a solid.
He was massive.
He was a big guy, big musty, strong guy, and a great fighter as well. But you still managed to pull off this jumping, spinning heel hook
the wheel kick
with tuck. So and it landed. And it landed well.
And
he
still kept coming forward.
And he still kept coming forward. Not many. I think if he hadn't had the the 10, 15 kilo weight advantage, I think his head would have literally come off at the shoulders. You know. But those kind of techniques. Are they the things that you would normally pull off, competition wise?
My favourite K1 fighter is Gokhan Saki, and he's normally the shorter fighter, the smaller fighter, and he does all these different crazy kicks. So I copied that one off him. Right. It didn't work as well for me as it did for him though. But
that's all good. Well, you had a bigger guy. I mean, like I said, we've known each other for probably close to 20 years, maybe.
Long time,
a long time, and we trained together, and I had you to thank as well when I had this kind of year out, this lost year. You very graciously took me into the gym and worked a lot with me on some sparring on the pads, and you also give me the mental kind of push there to come back and to fight again. And we were in camp together, so we had a year together. I was coming in, I was working on some things with you, and then I think January 2016 we kind of started camp. We worked together for 12 weeks, and I remember coming in day one of camp. I twisted my knee up in jiu-jitsu, and you were there for me, week in, week out, and pushing me. And any funny memories of that camp together, or anything specific?
I think every single session, I think we beat the hell out of each other, to be fair. I think every single time we went in, we're going to take it easy this time. We got 2 or 3 rounds in, we got a bit overexcited.
It's very true, very true. I remember when you said, right, I would just go in and I didn't want to know what we're doing, and I think you said it was either 12 3-minute rounds with 30 seconds break. And I just remember not wanting to ask any round what the round was, because if I found out it was anything, if you'd like, I'm like, it's probably round 10, it's got to be round 10, it's like round 4 or 5, I think I would have just had to pack up and go home. So I just remember it did.
It done its job, didn't it?
It absolutely did, yeah, it absolutely did. But I want to come back to, I want to focus specifically on you and how you kind of got started in the game. So my first question is, what inspired you to head to the gym for the first time at 6?
Like most people, I think the first spark was John Claude Van Damme. I used to watch Kickboxer and Bloodsport with like my older brother.
Old school.
And then obviously Steve Jessup. At the time, he's a very successful kickboxing coach. He's done everything, didn't he?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So my mum put us into the kickboxing club there, and I think for the first year, I got the absolute crap kicked out of us. Off. That was girls as well. It wasn't just the guys, it was
some
the girls.
Tough girls
well.
out there.
Yeah, exactly. So I stuck in with that for a year. I'm getting beaten up every single session, but I just really liked doing it, even though I wasn't exactly you wouldn't think I was having much fun, but I really was. I really liked doing it. So that's how I got me started. It was my mum pushing us in every week.
So what kind of then, on that note, that you're going into the gym, you're being beaten physically, and that takes an emotional toll. What drove you to just keep going back? I mean, you said you had fun, but just digging a bit deeper, like, week after week, month after month, and then obviously year after year, what would make you want to just keep going back, and what inside you inspired, without going too many layers down, but more than just having fun?
I think once you have that, I don't think it can get any worse, can it?
Yeah.
It can only get better. so that was it. So I literally hit the rock bottom. You couldn't get no worse than that. Yeah. And it just kept building up. Like I said, I really like the films. I really like learning new techniques. I did like doing the sparring. I liked everything to do with it. And then I knew since I was younger that I actually wanted to compete. Yeah. So I used to watch, the likes of Mike Tyson and stuff, and I wanted to get into that. So my mum would keep pushing us and keep pushing us and keep pushing us in. Yeah. So
it's important.
Can we share this on Stevie's page?
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Let's go for it.
Let's do it. It's interesting, because especially nowadays more than ever, I think it's very important, especially for boys and for girls, but very much for boys to have some. Well, for boys and girls to have purpose and have a through line, have a reason to get up in the morning and to inspire yourselves to move forward. And, you know, for younger kids out there, obviously school's very important, absolutely 100%. But it maybe that some of the kids, when they're going to schools, you know, you've got, I'm not saying all schools, but you've got your football, you've got your rugby, generally speaking, you maybe have your athletics. Now, I personally never really engaged with any of those sports. So when I found kickboxing, that kind of filled a gap for me. And it gave me, especially as a young guy, you know, I was older than you at the time. I think I was 13, 14. I needed to have that kind of masculine edge to what I was doing, and to give me that kind of that purpose, I guess, and I think that's very important. And do you feel as if that gave you that something to kind of strive towards, you know,
Absolutely.
at the time, at that age?
Absolutely. So I started competing when I was 8, and since then I was absolutely hooked.
Yeah.
And that kept us on the straight and narrow. Even going into high school, I mean, when everyone would on the weekend, they would be going out drinking in fields and doing this, that, and everything else. I was in the gym 5 days a week trying to get British titles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, you know yourself, the buzz that you get from competing, it's just, it can't be matched.
Yeah.
To me, it can't be anyway. I mean, I had a little bit of time, like I just said there, I had a little bit of time off.
Yeah.
From not training as hard as I usually would. And I felt absolutely lost.
Yeah.
I started panicking, thinking, I don't think I can ever retire from this.
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, that's why a lot, I mean, you know, fighters come back. We see fighters coming back all the time. You know, it can be financially driven, you know, but I think a lot of the time it's like you're saying, it's like, you know, trying to replace what you have and what you can do as far as, you know, being a professional fighter, whatever the discipline it is. There's such a short window on that, isn't there? And it's just making the most of that time and taking every little, I suppose, ounce of kind of, you know, ounce of what you have out of that for the time that you're going to be competing. And you need to have that, I think. And if you let that go too early, that can be a disservice, you know. And I think what you're saying is right, is that, you know, I don't think there's anything out there that can replace the feeling that you get of just, not just the training and the competing and then the winning afterwards, but then the feeling of just knowing that you can do something great, you know? Yeah,
exactly.
It's interesting. What were your first impressions in the gym when you stepped in the gym for the first time as a young guy?
The place where we trained, it wasn't like a normal gym that you would have. It wasn't a ring. There wasn't like... There wasn't a ring. There wasn't like bags or anything.
Yeah.
So...
Just do a mic, excuse me. Just speak up.
Yeah, cool. It was pretty daunting when I first went in.
Yeah.
There was so many people in there. Didn't know what to expect. But like I said before, once I had my first session, I was hooked. I absolutely loved it.
So you've trained now for over 20 years, you know, a long time. And I suppose doing the same thing, quote unquote, for 20 years or 25 years, nearly 25 years could get repetitive, but clearly you're not doing the same thing over and over again. You said before at the start of the show that you're trying new things, you're adapting new things. But how has your training kind of progressed in a sense? Not just what you're doing differently, but what you're doing, what you're improving, like types of training that you've done in the past, but you've changed, you've moved around and adapted. Anything specific?
From when we first started, it was like there was the long pants kickboxing. The style that we done had a lot of kung fu in it as well.
Yeah,
I liked doing that, but then I got really interested in the K1, the Grand Prix stuff, the Ernesto Hoost and the Handy Hugs, Peter Rett. I started watching that and I was like, right, I want to do this. So I verged into doing that once I'd retired from doing the long pants kickboxing, which was when I was 20.
Yeah,
I stopped doing that. I thought, right, I want to do something new now.
Yeah.
So I went and done a little bit of Muay Thai, and then I went into doing the K1 style, which I think I had my first K1 fight when I was maybe 21, 22, something like that, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I just loved the leg kicks and the knees.
Well, why was that then? Because obviously, just for the viewers at home who don't know, the full contact with kickboxing, you have full contact, which is essentially professional boxing, but you can kick also to the body and kick to the body, kick to the head. You can't leg kick, and you wear shin guards and like insteps. Whereas with K1, which is it's not so much a style, but it's a rule set. It's named after the K1 Corporation, as Stevie said. Some great. My favorite was the European Prince. What was he called? Stefan Leko.
The Blitz.
The Blitz. They're sponsored by Blitz.
Yeah, the
Shout
Blitz.
out. You owe some gear Blitz mentioning on PEEP. But yeah, it was fantastic. But it was as I say, it's like a rule set. So in K1, you could punch, again, professional boxing, but you could kick the leg, you kick the body, you could kick to the head. You could knee strike, no elbow strikes.
No elbows,
what I recall. And a single knee off it, you can't clinch and stay in a clinching knee.
Rules have changed that many times.
Yeah.
You could have a 3-second clinch, you could have a single clinch, you could have a
Yeah.
striking lead.
Yeah,
It's changed
yeah.
that many times.
It's probably changed with being on air. You know?
Yeah, it's probably going to change again sometime.
Yeah. But it's so what was it about the leg kicking then that really kind of drew you into it more than the full contact?
I think it was taking the pads off. Because when you do, even when you fight as a professional with the long pants kickboxing and stuff, they wear the pads.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, and to be honest, it's so much easier to smash leg kicks than it is to throw kicks above the waist and at the head
100%.
for like 12 rounds,
Yeah.
as opposed to doing 3 threes.
Yeah.
Where you can just put every single thing into it every single time. So that was it. And the fact, like I said, that from a young age, I'd been watching people do K1, so that's what I wanted to do.
It drew you into it. That's interesting. I mean, I mentioned before as well, I'm just glancing down at my notes, but the weight, I mean, from what I remember, you competed predominantly as a heavyweight, if that's correct. So could you tell us a little bit about the weight division you competed in and what the kind of weight cutoff, and again, for the viewers at home, or in your cars, on your mobiles, wherever you might be right now, the governing bodies, you know, your main ones at the time for me in my mind was WK, ISKA, IKF, maybe WACO Pro. So each kind of governing, and if you could think of those, if you follow your boxing with WBC, WBA, WBO, etc., and each one would have slightly different divisions. It wouldn't be like in pro boxing where you have your set divisions. So say your middleweight is 160, super middle 168, light heavyweight 175, etc. In mixed martial arts, you know, your middleweight is 185, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then you've got, is it your heavyweights are
205.
205, and then your super heavyweight. So it can vary with a governing body, but roughly speaking, just could you tell us the divisions that you competed in and roughly what they were?
I've went from, my first full contact fight, I think I was like 12 or something. So I've went from something like a flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight. I've done nearly every single division you could, but I've never actually fought at heavyweight.
Right.
I have fought heavyweights.
Right, okay. So you've never been a heavyweight.
They've came in as heavyweight,
right,
but I haven't been. The heaviest I've ever been, I think I was like 88k.
So what was the heavyweight division then? Would that be around about 90k plus, give or take?
Yeah, that's 95k. Yeah.
So somebody take that out of, is that metric? I don't really understand this kilograms and meters. Can we have that? Can somebody just convert that to pounds and pounds? 90 kilograms. We're going to use our trusty calculator.
95k is heavyweight.
95.
Yeah, 95k is heavyweight.
So if we say 95, 95 kilograms in pounds, I'm gonna guess it's like 200 pounds? Is it 200?
95.
Right. Okay. So 200 pound plus. I'd have had it more than that. Actually.
Is that 90k though?
Is that 90? See, 95 I'd have had as 2.25 times. So it'd be like 10, about 211. Is it 212?
Pounds 198.
In kilos.
In pounds.
So if we converted 90 kilos to pounds, 95 kilos converted to pounds, if that's cool. 40.8233. If we put in, is it? No, it's 95 kilos. So it'd be 95 times 2.25. I'm going to do that. Well, any mathematicians run that. Anyway, as we're as we're finding that out, so you're essentially an 88 kilo fighter competing against guys who are 95 kilos.
That's the heaviest I've been.
90 kilos is pounds 198.
So 198 pounds. So if it was 95, we're looking at about 212, 214.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. So you're coming in at like what the top 180s, maybe 188, 189 pounds. You're fighting against guys who are 212.
Yeah.
How's that work out?
You were there.
I was.
You see it?
But yeah, sorry, you did. Yeah, I was in my flu. We have a question. David Wield.
Jewel will never change from the K1 rules, Steve.
Right, that's good to know, because I'll definitely be back on a Jewel sometime.
Right. We've just had David Wield, our special guest last week. The rule set for David. David sets his rule set by the kind of the K1 authorized rules, I would imagine, and I think what then happens is other governing bodies or promotions rather can kind of play around with it a little bit, you know, and move that around. But with Jewel being one of the UK's and Europe's premier kickboxing promotions, they'll have a rule set that will just stay there in stone. So when we were talking, your last fight, which is actually, I believe, was on one of David Wheel's shows.
Yeah, it was.
It was. We talked about that show actually. I was talking about how
Dual Grand Prix.
Grand Prix, how high the production values of that show. I was very impressed when I walked in the arena and saw they had the videos up with all the fighters on and the ring and the ring walks and everything. And training up for that fight, you dropped down to, I think it was 83, 82, sorry, because I remember you weighing in for that 82 kilos. How did it feel going from an 88 kilo fighter to coming down to an 82? Now, obviously, we know the result of that fight. Stevie stopped his guy, I think, in the second round. First round. Yeah. See, we like to do that. So first round.
When the shot comes up, I'll zoom in on
Please do. Well, do you know what? I was so stressed that night that I couldn't remember. It could have been, I got my rounds all mixed up. I remember you throwing a counter left hook, which you'd worked a lot with Baz and dropping him. Yeah. And then the low kicks, I think, as you were saying before, just were too much for him. So so the first round, you stopped your guy. And the guy you fought was a very tough guy, very experienced guy. The guy had fought a lot in K1. He'd fought in MMA. And he was no joke. I remember coming backstage, doing a bit of warm up on the pads with you. Obviously, you know, just to be there, kind of thing, as a viewer, really on the outside. You were with Baz and you were with our guy and Mickey Terrell, of course. That was your corner that night. How did it go from going from 88 down to 83?
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Because like when I was fighting at 88k, it wasn't productive weight that I had on. Yeah. So it just slowed us down a lot. Yeah. I didn't feel good at it, but the coach at the time said, "You'll be fine with it." Yeah. 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 I wasn't fine with it. Yeah. But 82k is much better for me. I'm even thinking about dropping to 77.
Well, yeah, we talked a little bit about that. I think just picking up on the weight there, I think, you know, I don't know, just for a question here, for what your opinion is, your thoughts on this, that if you're an 88 kilo, let's go with that, 88 kilo fighter, if you're carrying, and I'm not saying you were, but say hypothetically you're carrying a lot of water and body fat. I was. That's not really going to benefit you having that extra weight, because it's not what I would call active weight. It doesn't really do very much. At the same end, I don't know how you feel about this, if you were 88 kilos, ripped to the bone, you know, that's a disservice as well, because you don't have enough water and body fat to give you, you know, the kind of energy reserves that you need. At the same time, though, you know, you want to be a conditioned athlete, not too heavy, but not to those ends of the scale. The extra weight's not going to help. No, definitely if it's not the right weight.
The best way I can equate it is if you do a workout with a 10 kilo vest on. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You're not used to your normal weight you're used to. You can handle it. If I chuck an extra 10k on you, it's going to tire you out. And that's exactly what it done.
So it's working against you that way.
Yeah, it did, definitely. I think if your frame's right for like an 88k fighter, which I think should be like someone like who's 6'4", something like that. Yeah. I think if your frame's right, I think you're fine. Yeah. I think if you're 5'11" like me, I don't think it works really well.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know, again, just your views on this. My opinion for weight cutting, because obviously we're talking about weights specifically for competition, for fighters, professional fighters. I've always been of the opinion that you should fight pretty much where you're walking around. And what I mean by that is, say if you're walking around at 86, 87 kilos, then you're probably cutting down to maybe 82 to 84. Yeah. And you'll do that over the period of 12 weeks or maybe 10 weeks. Yeah. And it won't be a case of that, you know, you're cutting 30, 40 pounds or 20, 30 pounds the week of the fight by water loading. In actual fact, you'll just be eating normally, in a sense, changing your foods where you're not restricting calories. You're having the right kind of calories in the right amounts. You're having plenty of water. The body fat levels are naturally dropping off. You're keeping your energy levels high, so you're able to train the way you would normally train. You're not having to kind of subjugate any kind of training and say, oh, well, you know, I can't train as hard or as intense because I'm tired all the time. I've got no natural sugars. I've got no stored carbohydrates. My water levels are too low. So you're able to just train your normal camp. Your weight drops down normally. You lose your perhaps 5 to 8 pounds over the course of 12 weeks, or it can be up to 10 pounds, and then you're ready to fight on the day and the weight isn't an issue. Or are you of the school where you would just cut a tremendous amount of weight simply to be, hypothetically, the bigger guy in the ring?
No. I might put the cat amongst the pigeons, but I think it's cheating. Yeah? I think it's cheating. It's plain and simple, it's cheating. What is the point in having a weight category? If we decide we're going to fight at 85k, okay, then I cut a lot of water. Basically, I need to kill myself to get 85k. And then knowingly, I come into the ring as a 90k fighter or even heavier.
Yeah.
I think it's cheating.
Well, it's dangerous.
It is. It's really, it's like we're talking about there, when I was fighting that guy who was really heavy, all of my fights since I was 17 haven't went past the first round. They've all been stoppages.
Yeah.
Going with a guy who's heavier. Yeah. My big tool, my power, it just means absolutely nothing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then I'm getting I'm in with a guy who's basically a heavyweight. Yeah. 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 I think it's.
Who's that guy you went in with on Jewel? Kazi?
That's the one we're on about.
That's who we're talking about. That's a big guy. Throw his pitch. I think he doubled for Godzilla, didn't he?
He was absolutely huge. I've never seen a set of legs as big in my life.
It's an interesting one. I mean, we've seen fighters. I think from this perspective as well. I mean, I know when I was doing some work with Vision Promotions and an MMA promotion up in Scotland, and there was a guy who came over from, I think he came over from Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, and he apparently walked around close to 90 kilos, and yet he cut down to under, I think he was under 70. I wasn't sure what the weight division, so he'd lose 20 odd kilos in the course of a camp. But then when he got in and he fought, who did he fight? He fought Stephen Whiteford, Robert Whiteford. And I'm sure the chap Robert stopped him in the first round because the guy came in and he just had nothing there. He had, he had no energy, no snap in his punches. I think he'd put the weight back on, but he was just lacking any stored. He had no stored glycogen. He was out on his feet, and it's also dangerous because if you're cutting that much water, the brain requires fluid to protect itself. So it's dangerous for you as well, cutting that weight.
Of course.
I don't know. I think it comes in a lot from. It's very frequent MMA. It does happen in boxing, although I would argue probably not as much. Although you do see it. Yeah. But it seems to have that kind of the college wrestler kind of aspect to it, where they would cut a tremendous amount of weight and they'd starve themselves and they would do these things to try and fit into weight divisions. I mean, have you ever struggled to make a weight division? So I know you've only just recently dropped weight, but when you made 83, did you struggle to 82? Sorry, did you struggle to get to that?
Not at all, not in the slightest. I mean, I think it was 3 weeks. Yeah, I just kept everything really strict, the diet. I didn't have to do any, you helped us out with some supplements. Yeah. I didn't have to do anything ridiculous, like sitting in saunas and stuff like that. I was absolutely fine. And
how did you feel on the night,
Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. I felt really good with it, but as I say, I think it's cheating. I think it's dangerous. It's dangerous for yourself, like you were saying, the brain damage, the trauma you can get. Yeah. Because let's be honest, some people haven't got a clue what they're doing with it. You talk about the UFC fighters, they've got a team around them who, with stuff like this, that actually know what they're doing. Yeah,
very much. Yeah.
Not like
professional.
Yeah, just some guy who goes, right, I've seen this happen, and I tell you I'm just going to sweat it out, I'm going to Epsom salts bath, and I'm going to nearly kill myself.
Yeah, very true.
You know what I mean? And then on the other side of it as well, it's not just dangerous for yourself, your opponent. It's like me getting into the ring with a 70k fighter with 10-ounce gloves on. Yeah. They're not going to have felt that power behind punches before. Yeah. If I weigh in at 70k, and then I go and put an extra 10k on, it's going to be really bad for them. Yeah. And I think it's dishonourable. Yeah. I really do.
I don't disagree with that. I think the weight divisions are there for a reason, to protect the fighters and to give us fair fights, skill notwithstanding. So the weights are around the same. Moving on from that, I just want to talk a little bit. Ask you a couple more questions, and we're going to talk competition. We've still got the PEEP XS to do as well. Well, we're going to look at the PEEP XS. We're going to PEEP XS. That is the official name. I went for PEEP Mix, was a temporary name, but we've gone to PEEP XS. We love that, and we will have a rather catching graphic that will be coming up in upcoming shows. The last thing I wanted to ask you about was, can I mention what you do work-wise? Other than coaching? Of course, obviously you work door security. Yeah. Should we give a shout out to Lola Jeans?
It's Lola Jeans Time Out. Yeah.
Shout out to Lola Jeans Time Out. So anybody who wants to go over, get a fantastic. I've been there. Stevie's took me there a few times. If you want a great night out, some fantastic drinks, to do fantastic food, or if you want to test your metal against one of the best. No, I'm just kidding. So shout out to Lola Jeans there. Where was I going with this? That's what I was going to ask you. That was the question. Now, you work security. Unfortunately, sometimes it does have obviously a physical aspect to it. The question I want to ask you is this: the training that you've done, the 25 years of martial arts based training that you've done, can you tell us how that has helped you in your job as a security agent, security officer, but not so much from a physical aspect, but rather from an emotional and a psychological and a mental aspect?
The bar that I work on at the minute, we don't really get much trouble there, but I think it's one of those ones where you've got nothing to prove. I've worked with a lot of people who feel like they have to, if someone calls you this or calls you that they have to do something about it. I'm not bothered in the slightest. I'm not bothered in the slightest. I'm in the gym every day. I'm sparring with people who know what they're doing. So like, I haven't got anything to prove. You know what I mean? I've got nothing to prove. So if something does happen, I know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Course,
It's not going to be good for either one of us.
Yeah,
I've got 2 kids as well, and I'm not gonna get arrested or go into jail for having some fight with some guy who can't handle his drink. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So nothing to prove.
100%. I love that. Right then, on that note, we're not ending the show, so don't you go anywhere. We're going to move on to the show. We're going to talk a little bit of competition. We have a competition winner. Now, the question, I'm just going to revert back to my notes right now. Stevie's very graciously has agreed to stay with us for the rest of the show. We're going to talk a little bit competition. So, we have a winner, as I've already said. Now, the question was this. What visual reference to an iconic photographic image circa 1931 can you see in the studio? There is an ode to it in a studio, not so much a hint, but a kind of a replication of that.
I'm going to zoom in on it right
We're
now.
going to zoom in on it right now
2 seconds.
with our steady cam. Tripod. Okay.
I'm zooming in.
And I'm going to give you the answer. The answer was, it was an iconic photograph of the body of mafia boss Joe Mastiero on a Brooklyn restaurant floor, still holding the Ace of Spades. And that was actually 1931. So, our winner, and I would like to point out that this competition has not been fixed. There is no connection to anybody in the studio having swayed the judges, but in fact, the winner of the studio, how did the winner get in touch? Through
contact at PEEP Magazine.
Through contact at PEEP Magazine. So if you do want to enter any competition, you can get in touch with us through contact at PEEP Magazine. The winner is Mr. Freddie IBBOTSON.
Yeah.
Well done, Freddie. Any relation? Okay, right. That's how it works. If you want to win, you got to send somebody on. You got to send somebody on the show. I think it's Stevie's dad that's won. And do you know what he's won? He has won an official PEEP Magazine limited edition combat sport T-shirt. Does he get the dressing gown as well?
He doesn't get the dressing gown, I'm afraid.
The mannequin?
He doesn't get the mannequin.
Okay, right. So well done. We're going to take your details. We're going to kind of post those so it's all done official, and then we're going to send them out to you. We need his address. We're able to find that out. And size of T-shirt too. Now, let's move on to the next competition, which is running. Now, what we've decided to do is the competitions will run. I think what we do is we run these competitions for 2 weeks. So you have a 2-week period. The show the competition is announced and the following show to guess correctly. But you've got to get it done in the same show. Okay, right. I'm going to withdraw that. You have to answer in the same show during the live feed. That way it becomes interactive. So I'm going to throw this question out at you. And this question is to win an official Team Alpha Pretty Boy Assassin, which we can zoom into now, T-shirt, or rather training top, dry fit. Stevie can comment of the quality of these tops.
Absolutely brilliant.
There you go. Thank you very much. That's going to go on the poster. Quote Stevie IBBOTSON, K1 World Champion. Absolutely brilliant. Top endorsement. And it's a double XL size. So hopefully a double XL. You might just want to keep it and, keep it because in a few years' time, those things are going to go for tremendous amounts. Forget Bitcoin. You want to invest in Pretty Boy Assassin T-shirts. So the question was this. Which Klitschko won the WBO, obviously heavyweight, I will stress that. Which Klitschko, that's the first part of the question, won the WBO heavyweight world title against which British heavyweight, the second part of the question, and what year? So there's actually 3 parts and you've got to get all 3 parts right. So once more, which Klitschko won the WBO heavyweight world title against which British heavyweight, and what was the year? And if you can guess that right tonight, you're going to win yourself that t-shirt. Okay, I should also mention that on the last question, the Mr. Ibbotson has also won the APN Lean Pro Vanilla Protein Powder. I've got a feeling I know where that's going to end up. That's going to go to
he
Stevie.
doesn't need it.
So that's going on in the out with it as well. So that's it, right? We're going to. So before I move on to PEEP Excess, in fact, I'm now going to move on to PEEP Excess. We're going to talk a little bit on that. Then I'd like to come back with Stevie, get his input on the subject matter of PEEP Excess, and I want to talk to him a little bit about UFC 217. So, PEEP Excess. This week we're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about film. Last week we talked about books. We talked a little bit about Dark Trade, and we also talked about the other book, which was called. That was a book, Unchained, which was a very interesting book about the past days of yore of bare knuckle boxing. Dark Trade was focused predominantly on the 90s professional boxing scene. Some fantastic books. You can find them on Amazon if you want to, or we talked about supporting your local bookshop. Barter Books, you might want to go there if you're near Annick Way, go to your local bookshop. Dark Trade, heavily recommended boxing book about 1990s professional boxing scene by Donald McRae. And the book Unchained, which was, I forget the gentleman's name, but he was basically a bare knuckle boxer who'd been taken for, who was a slave, a black slave, who'd been brought over to the UK. He was given residence near Annick Castle, I believe. He was given a job as, I think it was as a not a woodsman, but as a carver, I think. And then he moved on to the bare knuckle boxing scene. Carpenter, thank you, a carpenter, and moved on to Bill Richmond. Bill Richmond. So you might want to check those two books off now, put them into your basket on Amazon, and buy yourself them for an early Christmas present. So
you can check out issue 2 to go back and watch it, because
absolutely, yeah, you can. They're still live. So if you're subscribing right now, we appreciate our viewers and our subscribers. We more than appreciate it, because without you, there's just 4 guys sat in a studio. So if you'd like to go back onto a past episode and view that, episode number 2, there's a they're not really reviews, they're more overviews of the 2 books, and check those out for yourself and see what you think. Right, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about film. I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of the 2 films we're going to talk about. I'm going to speak a little bit with Stevie on them. Hopefully you've seen them. And we can bring up a bit of dialogue. So the first film we're going to talk about is Blade Runner 2049. You'll also remember, this is relevant, that one of our subscribers is Ridley Scott, the director Ridley Scott, who Cliff knows through his time at university doing his film degree. He's a viewer. He often comments when we're running these live feeds. So the Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner, here's a little synopsis of the film for you, starring Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford. This is the original. If I just show you the original first, the original Blade Runner, which starred Harrison Ford, Shaw Young, and Rutger Hauer. And a synopsis of the original film to get you into the groove, so to speak. The original film is considered a cult classic, starring Harrison Ford, Sean Young, and Rutger Hauer. The story is set in a bleak dystopian future as the environment continued to break down around them. Deckard, who is the main protagonist, is coerced to return to his role as a Blade Runner, and he's tasked to hunt down and retire replicants, which is an interesting one, because I initially thought replicants were kind of like cyborg beings. In fact, they're just synthetic humans. So as part of his role, he's brought back to hunt down these replicants that have gone AWOL, retire them, so to speak. And it was just set over at the time, I think it was 1982 that the film was filmed. I think released at 82 or 84? And at the time, it's an absolute work of art. It's a classic film. Incredible depth of characters, incredible depth of story. One of the main attractions to the film was really the sets and the atmosphere that's produced.
1982.
It was 1982. The film sets, and if you look at how it's affected, films since then, and even music videos, and almost kind of dropped into modern culture. There's a lot of filmmakers that will go back and run Blade Runner and watch it as a classic piece of film and talk about it, and not so much base their films on it, but certainly look at that as a classic piece of, as I say, film noir. Now, one of the main points of the film really was talking about, what does it mean to be a replicant? It's based on the book by Philip K. Dick, and the book is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And the idea was behind that is, if you're an android or if you're a replicant, would you dream of a replicant sheep, or would you dream of a real sheep? That was kind of the idea behind it. So what's human? Can you make replicant humans more human than a human being themselves? So there was many layers to the story. And as I say, a cult classic. And if you haven't seen Blade Runner, I sincerely recommend that you check it out and you hire it. You can probably buy it for a couple of pounds on Amazon. You can hire it. It'll maybe be streaming on Netflix. You want to check that out. All I'm giving you, as I say, is a very, very brief synopsis. It's a lot deeper than what I'm talking about. I just don't want to give any spoilers away. So, running from that, the running kind of idea from that was, is Deckard a replicant? We didn't know if he was real or if he was, as I say, one of the replicants. Blade Runner 2049, let's look at that. It's set 30 years after the original, and it follows the new Blade Runner called Officer K, played by Ryan Gosling. And he continues the work of hunting replicants that remain in a future LA and Las Vegas. Replicants are created to serve mankind by Nyanda Wallace, played by Jared Leto. And he seems to have taken over the main part of the Tyrell Corporation, which is the main corporation in the original that created the replicants. Officer K discovers a body whilst retiring a road replicant. And this directly brings him into the path of Deckard from the original, played by Harrison Ford. And it's interesting, very clearly from the start of the film, they kind of set the stall out early. And they tell you that Officer K, Ryan Gosling's character, is very clearly a replicant because he shows tremendous strength as he kind of battles the replicant he goes to retire, played by David Bautista. And you see very clearly this guy is a replicant. The opening scene is also, in actual fact, from the original script. It was never filmed, but it's from the original script, showing the detective going to this farmhouse. He comes down on his tumbler. He gets out. There's this, as I say, a farmhouse. He walks in. There's a pot of soup boiling on the oven. He goes over to the soup. He stirs it, and as he does that, the owner of the farmhouse walks in. And they have a certain amount of dialogue, and the Officer K in this case is gone out and just shoots him and retires him, but not until he said, "You've never seen a miracle," and then that leads us on into the rest of the story. So some of the main points of the new film is it still hangs over. Is Deckard, as we meet later in the film, Harrison Ford's character, is he a replicant? And that's something that's kind of glanced at and looked at in the film, and that still sits in there. What I found with the new movie, with Blade Runner 2049, was that it was such a smooth transition from the original into the new one. Very often when you've got sequels, they can sometimes be seen as kind of a cash cow, that you're just making a sequel to kind of follow on from the original, get the original viewers back and make a little bit more money. But very much this film just kind of segues just beautifully into the original. It's sitting in the same world very clearly. It's sitting in the same kind of topics and culture, so to speak, and it's just a beautiful progression. That there's no kind of bumping between the two. It's quite a long film. It's actually an hour longer than the original. The original ran around about an hour and 57 minutes. The new one runs to 2 hours and 47 minutes. So it's quite a long film. But what I will say is that there's very deep characterization. The cast is tremendous. I want to speak about one of the other characters, Joy, who kind of plays a holographic girlfriend of Ryan Gosling's character, of Officer K. That works tremendously well. It just makes you ask so many questions about, what is a relationship, what's a real relationship, and just kind of this bringing together of two kind of two people in such a beautiful and measured way. I personally would give the film 8 out of 10. Again, it's not really a review; it's more of an overview. I thought it just, as I say, bonded beautifully to the original. It's certainly not a film to go see. When I was a young guy and I watched the original, I wanted to go see it because it's got Han Solo in it. He's going to be shooting androids and running around. It wasn't like that. It was very much a slow burner, slow paced story. and the new one kind of follows that same kind of feeling. That it's if you didn't like the original, I don't think you're going to like the new one. But if you have an interest in the original, if you're passionate about the original, I would certainly recommend that you go see it, because you will not be disappointed. I also believe that the director, is it Villeneuve? The director, Villeneuve? I'm trying to remember, can we pronounce his name? He directed Arrival, an incredible director, and what he stated is that he will not be doing any other versions of Blade Runner 2049. There'll be no editors, director's cut or special edits or Blu-ray editions. The edition that's out there, that's the only one that he's going to touch. So we'll just get the pronunciation of the director's name off screen. Is Ridley, is he commented? Dennis Villeneuve? I thought it was Villeneuve. It could be Villeneuve. But he's a fantastic director, and he's done such a good job. Ridley stepped away from the directional duties, although he did produce a new movie. But I went to go see it at Tyneside Cinema a couple of weeks ago, and as I say, I could not have been happier. I think it's a tremendous, tremendous film, and I recommend you go out and watch the original, take a view of that, and if you enjoyed it, get yourself to the cinema and watch the new one.
Yes.
Yes.
The city speak in there. Is there any city speak?
City speak. The character who was, what's the character's name from the original one who had the main majority of the city speak? What was his name?
His real name is Edward James Olmore.
Yeah, Edward James. He actually features in the new film, and you see his character in that. Obviously, he's a little bit older and etc. And I think Gaff. That was it. Yeah. It doesn't touch on the city speak from what I remember, and I could be wrong, as the original did. And one of the things I will say is that in the original film, Rutger Hauer played such a pivotal role. And I think if you ask most people or some people about Blade Runner, what's one of the things I remember from the original, a lot of them will say, Rutger Hauer's character Batty, the death scene. Whereas in the new one, we're kind of missing that antagonist, so to speak. We haven't really got that in the new film. There's nobody there as a through line. The film's really centered around Deckard and Officer K, and they're really the main two that we kind of bounce off during the film. So yeah, have you seen the original?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times.
What do you think?
Really good.
Yeah.
A question: can anyone remember the branding right at the end of the film when he lets the dove go? Can anyone remember the branding behind him?
Is it Atari?
No, I can't remember.
Coca-Cola? All right, okay. Well, that looks like that's this week's question. So this week's question is, what at the end of the original film, Blade Runner film, as Batty lets go of the dove during his death scene, what branding, which would be like a logo, I assume, is a logo? What company is behind the dove? And if you guess that question right, you're going to win. What we're going to win? Are we going to give away that Mac finally?
We're going to give away a ticket for Jewel.
There you go. Mr. Wield, I hope you're watching, because we're giving away a ticket. Is it 1 or 2 tickets? 1. We're going to push for 2 tickets. I didn't know we were doing I didn't realize we'd blocked off that last competition. So we've just had a new competition running. So if you can answer that question, is it 2 tickets or 1?
1 for the moment.
1 ticket for Jewel.
This show.
Upcoming Jewel. If you can name the logo at the back of behind the dove as Batty lets the dove go on the last or one of the pivotal scenes, the ending scenes towards the end of Blade Runner, depending on which cut you're looking at, you will win a ticket for Jewel. So that's just an overview of the 2 films. They're not really reviews. I haven't gone too deep into them. Didn't want to give any spoilers. Are you going to go and see the new Blade Runner, or is it a wait till it comes on video?
Go and see it.
It's not even DVD anymore. It's on stream, isn't it?
That's the one, mate. Yeah,
or one of those
streams now.
I still like my DVDs.
We'll get a shout out
We can.
Peter Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, Peter Johnson.
Say hi to Steve for me, top guy in trainer chairs.
Yeah, he's awesome, Peter. He's been coming to all my fights since I first started K1.
Really?
Absolutely
a long
brilliant.
time.
David Wheels says 2 tickets.
2 tickets, ladies and gentlemen. 2 tickets for Jewel. If you can answer the question of, let's see if it's on the back of the box. No, you'll have to actually watch the film, or at least buy it and rewind it or something. What logo is behind the dove that Batty lets go of during his death scene? If you answer that correctly tonight, within the next, we've got about 10-15 minutes of this show left, then you will receive yourself 2 VIP tickets to see Duel on, what is the date? I have it on my notes. I'm going to find it. Let's have a look. Duel the 17th of December. Tickets now on sale from boxingtickets.com. But if you answer that question, you can receive 2. Did you say you're going to go see the new? You're going to wait. That's it. You're going to wait till it comes out on
I'll
stream.
wait. Yeah, I'll wait. Yeah,
definitely worth going to see. Your friend at the back there, is that wet your whistle for seeing Bladerunner? Have you seen Bladerunner, my friend? Or
I haven't, no.
do you fancy seeing it after that rather interesting overview?
I think so. Yeah.
It's okay. Good. Good. An hour 30. Brilliant. Right. Fantastic. Well, we're doing well. So we're going to turn back to our special guest here. What do you think about the comments on the UFC? I think I was going to bring you on that. The 217 specifically or particularly, our 2 main guys.
GSP. And
yeah,
Bisping.
GSP against you.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with Bisping. I'm gonna have to go. The only reason why is he's just kept himself more active. He's a bigger fighter. I think GSP done so well with his wrestling because he was the bigger guy at welterweight.
Yeah.
Wrestling determines whether you're going to stand or you're going to go to the ground.
Yeah.
He's not the bigger guy this time. Like, he's the weight he's supposed to be, but like we were talking about before, adjusting a new weight.
Yeah.
And then adjusting to a new weight after 4 years being out.
Yeah.
And then adjusting to a weight against the guy who's an absolute cardio king. He's landed the most shots in UFC history and he's got the most wins. And he's on top of his game. You just can't put him away.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
The thing. You just kind of. I think if GSP is going to win, he's gonna have to pin him.
Yeah,
he's gonna have to try and pin him. But again,
maybe take him down.
He's gonna have to try. But Bisping's fought like light heavyweight as well. So he's
well, that's the thing.
Yeah,
he's a former light heavyweight. I mean, he started light heavyweight. Did he not?
He won the Ultimate Fight at light heavyweight.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was undefeated as a light heavyweight, and then he came down to middleweight, and he's fought he's fought some of the best wrestlers, Dan Henderson and stuff. I mean, like, even getting in his last fight, I don't know how he didn't. In fact, he's passed 3 fights. I don't know how he hasn't been knocked out. The shots he's been hit with. Yeah. He's just so tough. Yeah. It's like I've become a big fan of him the last few fights. Yeah. To be in it 10 years and to be, because he has been robbed a few times before you saw that came in, hasn't he? With all the testosterone.
With the testing. Yeah.
All the people he's been beat off. He's nearly lost. He's lost an eye near enough. And he's stayed hungry, and he's managed to get his title after 10 years. Yeah. You've got to respect him for it. You really do. Somebody as tenacious as that, I mean, they're a hard guy to go against, aren't they? Because you're not going to break them mentally, and they're going to be very hard to break physically. And, I mean, I wasn't a huge Bisping fan in the sense of, the way he conducts himself. Yeah, basically. But I mean, I like, there's truth in that. I mean, for me, that's his truth. I mean, I think that's who he is. But and we watched some footage of him at home. He seems a very a family man. That means a lot to us. Obviously, he's a good father. I think he puts it on a lot. I remember watching it. I remember watching an interview with him where he was talking about in his early career, he used to fight with a lot of emotions. He used to get angry. Yeah, and from when he used to get angry and now when he's calm, he couldn't perform properly when he was angry. So what he tries to do is tries to wind his opponents up to the way he used to be to get them angry to fight like that.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
But if you watch some of the embedded, Michael Bisping has a bit of a confrontation with your guy, with the guy who you know who's fighting.
Masvidal. Yeah. I saw it. We're going to talk. Yeah, I wanted to talk. We're going to throw that up in a second. No. It's I'd have left that otherwise. But with Bisping, just finally, I mean, I gained a lot of not just respect, but admiration, I guess, from after watching him against Anderson Silva. People had spoke to me about that. I thought I'm going to check this guy out and check him out again. And I mean, that was an incredible performance to keep going. And the amount of respect he showed for Silva afterwards, it really turned me on to him. And I think the last question about that, when I'm looking at Georges St-Pierre, and I was going to try and do a French accent there, or a French Canadian accent, Jean St-Pierre.
Je suis.
Yeah. And I'm looking at his frame, and he's carrying. He's not fat, but he just has that light bone structure. He's obviously not as ripped, and I think Bisping made a comment about him having a belly like an impregnated alien. Not saying he was fat.
He's very broad.
But
Yeah.
St. Pierre, yeah. I'm a big St. Pierre fan, and I really do like the way he conducts himself. When he was doing the Contender, and he kind of sat there, and was it against Koscheck, I think? Koscheck, and I remember a couple of the guys that they had, they were fighting, they were out, and they were going at Koscheck, and St. Pierre was just there, very calm, wait till it all calmed down, went in to go and deal with it. So, you know, I've got a lot of respect for him. I actually watched a shout out to, I can't remember the name, I will for next. There's this Canadian radio show, and it streams on YouTube, live stream, and it's video as well. And they had St. Pierre on there, and it was really interesting to hear him talk about some of his psychological issues that he had. He talked about, I think it was a bit hyped about him saying he was abducted by aliens, but I think he had issues where he would have a sense of loss of time. Like he would just fade out for certain periods of time and then just come back in, and he wondered what had happened. And, you know, that can be an offset of concussion as well, you know, and brain injury as well. So I'm hoping that the 4 years has done him well, but I just feel that, just to put the full stop on this, that when Ricky Hatton came back, he had this kind of like fragile look to him. And I just wonder if that St. Pierre might be bringing that in a little bit. I don't know.
We'll see. I mean, the difference with him and Ricky Hatton is, I think Ricky Hatton was on a drink and
very much
other things.
Very much. But
I think GSP's the last
bastion.
He's like the last of the true martial artists.
Yeah, very much.
He follows the code, doesn't he, of what a martial artist is supposed
absolutely.
to be.
That's what I've got a lot of love from.
I've got his book, actually. I'll give you it, Jim.
I'd love to,
it's really good. I really like him, but I think it's...
Who are you going to pick?
I'm going to have to go with Bisping.
I'm going to go St. Pierre. Should we put a friendly wager on?
Yeah, cool.
Couple of quid or a fiver, what?
Yeah. Do a fiver.
There you go, man. You've seen it here first. Brilliant. Awesome. Just staying on that note, because like I said, we are going to have to wind down in the next few. We need to get you into work, otherwise Lola Jeans is going to be in a bit of a state later on. By the time you get in, there'll be stuff all over the place. Also on that cut, now I was speaking to Cliff before. It was interesting because these two fighters and the fight itself doesn't seem to have been promoted as much as the other ones. I know the other ones are title fights. This, I believe, is a non-title fight at middleweight. Is it welter? Georges welter, isn't it? Stephen Thompson versus Georges Masvidal. At welterweight, it's a non-title fight. It's an interesting one. So Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. That's an interesting one for me because I was actually signed to fight him back in the IKF kickboxing days. I think he was based in, was he California he was based in? I'm trying to remember where he was, where the fight was going to be. Originally it was going to be in Chicago, the Loves Arena in Chicago, in Rockford, I believe it was actually. And then it was apparently going to be moved to California. So anyway, I'd initially signed to fight Stephen Thompson. I think it was the IKF world title. That never happened because then Stephen Thompson, I believe, had moved into mixed martial arts. He has a karate background, traditional karate background, a pro kickboxing background. He's an undefeated as a professional kickboxer. Yeah. I remember him fighting on the World Combat League, WCL World Combat League with Bill Jardine, who was a former opponent of mine. I remember him being around in the days of Mike Nevitt, although I don't think Nevitt actually ever fought on the WCL. If you're watching Mike Nevitt, shout out to you. We had a couple of great wars together. Tremendous striker, obviously. Very, very accurate with his feet. Very powerful. And I didn't really know too much about Stephen, other than it was bandied around that when I first went over to Chicago and fought with the IKF for their world title, that it was a name that came up. He's a younger guy. Maybe it's a future opponent for you. I know he's potentially going to fight Nevitt at some point, but I hadn't really done any study on him until I knew I was going to be talking about on this show. Then I'd watched a small documentary on him, and he comes across as a very good guy. You know, I mean, I know he's very family based, family oriented. So I watched a little bit, and I was kind of turned on to thinking, yeah, he seems like a good guy, a nice guy, and obviously a great martial artist. So an interesting little mini history there with Stephen. Georges Masvidal, I do know quite a lot about, the game bred, because I followed his career. He's my favourite current active mixed martial artist. I remember him fighting, the backyard boxing. Watched that footage. Yeah. I don't know if you watched Miami Hustle, which is like a mini docu. It's almost like Embedded, but it's mainly about Masvidal. There's some other fighters on there as well, and shows his training camps. Then he moved from his original camp. I can't remember his coach's name. If you haven't seen Miami Hustle, it's informative. It's hilarious. It's fantastic. I've watched that numerous times, but I followed him through then. And as I say, just watch the adaptation of his fight career. I'm a big George A fan. He's a fantastic striker, great boxer, great kicker, great wrestler. I believe he wrestled in college. I think he actually had a background in wrestling, which not many people know. They always take him as a striker. And he also follows me on Instagram as well, actually, and occasionally makes comments on some posts. So, and his coach does as well. Paulin Boys is his tag. So follow Masvidal. I think it's just at Masvidal or at Gamebred, sorry, on Instagram, and Paulin Boys, who's his striking coach. So it's an interesting fight. I mean, the records are 13-2 for Wonderboy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and George A. Gamebred Masvidal. He has a 32-12. So 13 wins, 2 losses for Thompson, 32 wins and 12 losses for Masvidal. Masvidal's obviously got a tremendous amount of experience. He's seen it, he's done it all. He's come up on weight, because I know he was fighting at a lighter weight before. What's your feelings towards that one?
I think Wonderboy's going to get that one.
Yeah.
I do, yeah, definitely. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, big fan.
I think he's absolutely brilliant.
Good.
So I've got him for that one tonight.
Definitely. And that's the show is tonight, people. I don't think I even mentioned that. This is tonight. The UFC 217 is tonight. So are you predicting Thompson to win by strikes, by submission?
I don't know. I wouldn't even like to say, but I think he's going to get it tonight, definitely.
Really?
Did you watch his last fight? How long did he get choked for? When he fought Woodley. He had him in it.
Yeah.
I thought he's going to pass out. I think he lasted for 60 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. He's got no quitting him at all, Thompson.
So I've got to go with him.
I mean, he's a great. I mean, I'm gonna have to run some of his fights. I've not watched a lot of his MMA fights.
Very good rematch though.
No.
Right.
The first one was Tyrone. I think he just, like we were saying before, he just smothered him on the ground.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit too close.
Yeah.
The first one.
Well, I think we're gonna have to go with another little one on that, another £5 bet on that. I do like Stephen Thompson. If you're watching, good luck. And like I say, I've watched a little bit more about you, and I think you are obviously a very, very established, accomplished martial artist. But I think as a person, you come across as very, very positive. And I think it's you have your karate school, and you're inspiring young people. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. But how old is Stephen Thompson? He must be young. Is he 20s or 30s?
I think he's early 30s.
Early 30s, right. But I've got to stay with my boy, George Masvidal. Why did they fall out, him, Masvidal, and it's a shame that he's fallen out with Bisping. What was that about?
I have no idea. I think it's just like that Conor McGregor effect now, isn't it?
Right.
Just everybody lets the mouth go, and they're going to get a title fight.
Right.
I think Cody Garbrandt's awesome, but he done the right thing by doing what he done.
Yeah.
He done it, and he managed to boost himself up there. Fight Dominic Cruz, and he absolutely hammered him.
Yeah. Do you think?
Well, apparently McGregor will be watching that fight tonight, because he's due to come back to defend that belt.
Mm-hmm.
What, the Masvidal Thompson fight? Cody?
The TJ Dillashaw.
Right, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because what is that? Is that lightweight? Sorry, where are we? The Cody and the bantamweight. Sorry, yeah, I'm mixing up weights between boxing and obviously UFC.
Is he not wanting to go down and fight? What's the Mighty Mouse?
He mentioned Mighty Mouse. Yeah, he talked about wanting to fight Mighty Mouse.
Isn't he?
Yeah, he's a great fighter, isn't he?
He's good, yeah.
Yeah, he's
good.
Great gamer as well. He's sponsored by Xbox, for God's sake. If you're gonna do it, Xbox. It's huge. Well, I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, for Xbox, for Microsoft? Getting into something as mainstream as UFC. That's another discussion for another stream about UFC. Versus, well, not UFC, but MMA versus boxing, and I've got my own opinions on that in regards to, not so much just fighting styles and not fighters against fighters, but more about, how high can they reach, how much, viewing figures and attendance figures, and how much bigger can they become? Because boxing, I think there's been a renaissance with boxing over the last 5 years, filling up Wembley's with, Carl Froch against George Groves, and we've got Anthony Joshua filling seats, and I don't know. I mean, I just feel it's something. Even when the UFC, the top fighters come over to the UK, they struggle filling big arenas to a certain extent. It's an interesting one, but that's maybe a discussion for another time.
Return of Tyson Fury.
Return of Tyson. I mean, I want to discuss that on the next one. Tyson Fury. Is Joshua? Is our AJ going to fight Joshua? Is he going to go against? Go the UK route. Go against Wilder, who I love, who's a US fighter. I think Wilder's fantastic. Talk a little bit about his fight that he had last weekend. I haven't watched it live. I've tried to watch some of the footage. I know AJ broke his and apparently he'd broken his nose through an accidental headbutt.
Yeah.
I mean, the stoppage when I watched it was very hard to see, but it did look like a very strange stoppage to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't really.
He was still slipping and rolling.
He was still. Yeah, he was still fighting.
Slipping and
he was
rolling
still
when he
boxing.
stopped it. Yeah.
On the way to the ring, he gets stopped. Poor guy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's going on there? So. But that would be interesting. I mean, just very briefly on that. We'll talk about more on another one. But I mean, would you like to see, Stevie, would you like to see Anthony Joshua go the UK route and fight Tyson Fury? Or would you like to see him go the USA route and fight De'Toni Wilder, who is fighting also tonight, I think, against Stiverne? Is that tonight or is that next week? Is fighting... Wilder's fighting Stiverne. Is it Bertram Stiverne? The WB, he's defending his WBC belt. It's a rematch because he won the WBC belt from Stiverne, and not many people expected Wilder to be able to win it. Certainly not in that fashion. When he went 12 rounds, he outboxed him, he took punches, etc. What do you think, UK or USA?
I think he's going to fight Wilder next. He's
really,
going to have to. I mean, Tyson Fury's been saying he's been coming back for a while now.
Yeah.
And he's still the same size he was.
You've got to put the.
So I think it's going to make more sense, and it's more likely to happen. Yeah. Joshua and Wilder. It has to, really, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, for me, it's interesting because I'm a big fan of Wilder, and I do like Joshua. I mean, when everybody was, and this is with no disrespect whatsoever, kind of jumping on the bandwagon very early in his career, you've got to give these things time because, you know, obviously, as every single fighter in history, you have to go through. You don't go in, okay, Lomachenko. Yeah, he went in for a world title in his first fight, but it's a rarity, and there's 3 fighters in history who've done that. Obviously, you've got to go through and kind of make your way up through the fighters, so to speak. So until they get to a certain level, it's hard to judge how good they're going to be. However, with Joshua, after having beat, you know, Klitschko, you've got to give him the due credit for that, you know. Yeah, I personally would like to see him fight Tyson Fury, and the reason for that is I just think that's a good fight. I think for Fury it's a good fight because it's a win-win for him. You know, it gets him back on board. I think it's good for them, for the 2 guys who beat the same Klitschko to then fight each other. And I think it's a big money fight as well because ironically, as you well know in the past, maybe 10, certainly as close as maybe not 5, maybe 10 years ago plus, if you wanted to make money and make yourself a name in boxing, you had to go to the States. Yeah, you had to go to it was always about when you go to the States. When you go, even with Joe Calazaki, when you go to the States, he went over, he fought Hopkins, then he fought Roy Jones, I think in that order, if I'm not mistaken. And that's another stream. Whereas now, if you want to make money as a fighter, you come to the UK. That's where the money is in the UK because, you know, the pay-per-view is there, the live view is there, the live gate is there. But that being so, I'd like to see him fight Tyson Fury, and I'd like the winner of that to then go over and fight Wilder. What's your opinions on Wilder as a guy and a fighter, De'Toni Wilder?
I've not really watched many of his fights, to be fair. I've not really watched many of them, but I hate to say it, but I don't really think he's fought anybody who's absolutely spectacularly good. I really don't. So
yeah. You see, for me, after having fought Stiverne, that to me took him to the next level. Even though you could say, okay, Stiverne's not the big league name and all the rest of it. How many big names are in heavyweight boxing at the minute? There's not many. But I just think that he proved that he could do the 12 rounds. He proved that he could box. He proved he could take a punch. But interestingly, on Stiverne's last fight, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this gentleman's name, it was a southpaw fight. I think it was an Eastern European. I'm not sure if he was Polish, and it has southpaw. He had quite an awkward style, and Wilder couldn't do anything with him. Wilder looked very kind of like pedestrian. He was missing his timing, and he was falling over on his shots. But honestly, if you can tonight, Steve, if you don't mind, if you can Google Wilder's last awesome KO, Wilder's last fight, or his opponent, it'll come up. You'll see it. Yeah. And honestly, the guy was within 15 seconds or within 25 seconds, certainly within a minute of Wilder hitting him. He was literally, and I'm only saying this, and we can laugh about it because the guy was all right afterwards. He was in a stretcher and a neck brace. Seriously. Jesus. You know what I mean? Within a minute of Wilder clipping him, he was in a stretcher and a neck brace. And the guy can hit. I think we're starting to run out of time, and you know what? I could stay here all night. We've got to get Stevie to Lola Jeans. How much time we've got? We've got 5 minutes. We out of time? Yeah, we okay? Yeah, we're okay. Let's continue this stream. Run a run here. So we've talked a little bit about mixed martial art. What are the 2 bets we've got then? So I've got £5 on
Thompson and Gamebred, and we've got St. Pierre and Bisping.
Brilliant. So that's £10 that's floating around, and we've got a whole live audience witnessing that one. So there's no worries there. It's interesting. So just coming back to yourself then, Stevie, on the training note, talk to you a little bit about. You said before you're doing a lot of boxing, but you're saying boxing with MMA gloves on. So does that mean you might even consider a step through into the MMA game?
It's just one of those things I was saying before, like having a little bit of time off and just having to play around.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the striking's completely different with MMA gloves on than what it is with boxing gloves.
In what way would you say?
The angles.
Yeah.
The angles are completely different, and like the guy who I was doing the boxing with, I think, God, he's only something like 65k or something. So I can't actually clench my hand when I hit him. So I don't want to knock him into next week. So I've got to like back slap him.
Yeah. So, can you do that when we spar?
but yeah, it's good fun though. It's good fun.
Yeah. Back slap. It's all happening tonight on PEEP Live, episode 3. So would you ever consider going to mixed martial arts, or would it be a money-based decision?
I'd like to do it, but I mean, anybody with a shred of sense straight away, if you have a professional K1 fighter coming to do MMA, they're gonna take it straight down, aren't they?
Well, that's it.
There was one thing I would be interested in doing though. I think John Wayne Parr's got that. He's got the MMA gloved Thai boxing.
Right, really?
You seen that?
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah, because he likes MMA, he likes the idea of striking the gloves on, so he's made his own like association thing where it's Thai boxing with MMA gloves on. So if they ever done any sort of K1 thing like that, I'd absolutely love to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love to, because they're unforgiving, those gloves.
So it's one hitting you down kind of thing.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I mean you're going from the 4 ounce gloves, aren't they?
4 ounce, yeah.
So you're going from 10s down to 4s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming also. I mean I've done a little bit with the MMA stuff. The jiu-jitsu reasonably heavily with Tyrone and
Dave.
Yeah, Dave Elliott. I was just trying to think. It was Gracie Barra Jiu-Jitsu. I was just trying to think of where we used to train. Originally it was where was it? It was something pool. What was it? I'm trying to remember. Not. What's the bottom of Newcastle? It's a bit rough. What's it called?
I've done a little bit with them at Walls End Boys Club. But
Walls End Boys Club.
I've done a little bit there with Dave, but
I
can't remember the other one. I think he did switch to somewhere else.
Because we moved to there and then we moved over to Silverlink. But with Speedy. David Elliott and Tyrone Elliott. I mean, obviously, David's he's his first degree black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and when you're a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, it's the real deal. That carries worldwide. You're the real deal when it's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've done a certain amount of that for a number of years, and I'd like to start to grade in that. But the Jiu-Jitsu is something else. I really enjoy that, and some of the wrestling. With Ian Malone as well, and it is very different. But I think what I've found certainly as a striker, I think you always go back to your roots, don't you? I mean, the last thing I would look to do in an MMA fight would be to try and take somebody down. I'd want to try and sprawl. I would be comfortable in jiu-jitsu unless for like a purple belt or above. I think if a blue belt or below that, I would be happy enough on the ground. But I think that for me, it's so alien to try and shoot towards somebody's legs. I couldn't imagine doing that. Like it's like the last thing in my mind would be to drop my head, to drop levels, and then shoot towards the legs. It would be the last thing on my mind. So, but maybe some stand-up K1 with MMA gloves.
It's a good idea if anybody wants to do it.
We'll see. Well, we haven't discussed anything about upcoming fights. What's next on the radar for you? So I'd like to before we finish the stream, I'd like to know a little bit about what you've got planned next.
I've got something big happening in February, but I can't.
Yeah, of
say
course.
exactly what it is because I gave me word I wouldn't. But there's big things coming for next year, and February's a date to look out for.
Right, so February 2018.
Yeah, so in a couple of weeks I'll be starting my fight camp for that.
Right,
so that's how serious it's gonna be.
Yeah, it's a long. So how long is that camp gonna be?
Off the top of my head, about 15-16 weeks.
Wow, so a long camp.
Yeah,
16-week camp.
Can you get in touch with us when?
Yeah, of course, straight away.
That'll be good. We'll maybe
perhaps want to know.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we could come into the gym, do some filming.
Without a doubt, anytime
you
like.
Training that, maybe I'll We'll do some training together. We'll get that on film. We'd like to do another a little bit of PEEP combat. You know, we're actually going into gym reviews, and do a little bit in the gyms themselves. Do a bit of training. So, what's your plans tonight then? And where are you next after here?
I'm straight off to work after here.
Off to work into Lola Jeans. Yeah. So
have me coffee and me cookies.
Sounds good. Coffee and cookies.
The doors have changed now. They're not what they used to be.
That's it. What else do you want? Coffees and cookies. If we're talking coffees and cookies, you've got to get yourself the Barter books. I'm going to give them a free plug again. If you want the best ginger or chocolate cookies in the Northeast, or the best coffee, £1 for a coffee. Sorry, 30 pence for a coffee and £1 for a cookie. You cannot go wrong with that. I'll take you to Barter books sometime. Anything you'd like to add, my friend, before we wrap this up?
I just really appreciate you having us on. I have to give a shout out to my sponsor as well. Actually.
Of course, yeah.
BHP Nutrition. And I promise I'd say hello to my little girl, Eve, and Fern as well.
Fantastic.
So, and I'm looking forward to next year.
Brilliant.
Big time with a fight.
Bring it on, my man. Listen, we just want to thank you for taking time out to come with us. I know you've had to come away from work and all that kind of stuff, and your training. So appreciate having you on. Good to see you again. I haven't seen you for... we just kind of drifting in and out, don't we? If there's,
we're having lots of mandates, weren't we?
Yeah, we were as active. We're in there. We're eating together. We're training together.
Strolls across the beach.
That's it. Strolls across the beach. It's all happening on PEEP Live. You see, we kind of hybrid. We kind of meet up in the summer, hang out together, do that kind of stuff. If you imagine the original Top Gun, that volleyball scene. Perhaps you don't imagine it. Listen, we've had some great guests. We've had some great new names to things such as PEEP Excess. We've had our main man Cliff there in the studio running the PEEP legend, runs it, the whole deal. We've got, would you give you Sean a shout there? We've had Sean at the back who's on like bodyguard duties for Stevie. He's come in the studio tonight. We're coming to you live from the centre of Newcastle, the Northeast, the United Kingdom, Mother Earth. There's no better place to be on a Saturday evening. If you're interested in any form of combat, then PEEP Live. My name is James Watling. You can find me on Team Alpha. You can find me on Team Alpha 1424 on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at WatlingHot. You can find me on Facebook on the Team Alpha Facebook page. And very soon we will have our Team Alpha website, or your training, knowledge, nutrition, martial arts, strength and conditioning, emotional development and attribute development. It's all happening. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. That's a wrap. Good stuff. If you'd like to support PEEP Magazine, you can get in touch with us through the usual channels, through Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, or email. We can only come to you with your gracious help. So if you would like to, be a patron of the show, you can get in touch with us directly. Also, PEEP, we are looking for videographers and sound technicians. If you'd like to join the team at PEEP, once again, you can get in touch with us through Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, or you can even email us on contact@peepmagazine.co.uk. We'd be very interested in looking at your CV, having a talk with you, perhaps bring you onto the team, and you can be involved in some great things such as this. Thank you very much.